All right, candidates, this is round two. For round two, these questions will be 1 minute long. Every candidate will answer the same question. All right, we're going to go in order, Mr. Johnson being first, second, fourth, third, fourth, so on, as your vote totals were. And there will be a total of 8 questions. However, the last 3 will actually be open. We won't have a specific order for the last 3. Someone can volunteer to go first, second, third, and fourth, but you all will answer all questions. All right? So, with that said, we are now going to begin the second round as soon as I get my questions up. All right, this question is for Mr. Johnson first. Please explain who owns an individual's body, and by extension, who has the final say of what is ingested, inhaled, injected, or otherwise taken into the body, and why?
Well, very simply, that it is the individual. And good news, bad news. You know, in 1999, I advocated, I was the highest elected official in the United States to advocate for legalizing marijuana. That's the good news. On the basis of people being able to make their own decisions. Look, you can argue that it's not the best decision in the world, but if that decision doesn't adversely affect anyone else, then that should be a decision left to the individual. Bad news is in 2016, I'm still the highest elected official in the country to call for legalization of marijuana, although Bernie Sanders apparently rolled out of bed, hit his head, and I guess came to terms with that. But and assisted suicide is another issue where is there a more fundamental right than being able to make your own choice when it comes to such an unbelievable decision as that?
Thank you. Mike, left, Mike. There we go. Much better. All right. Now, next, Mr. Kerbel, same question.
Well, I think we're talking about the principle of self-ownership, which is, of course, one of our core beliefs. I'm firmly in agreement with that. Who owns our body? We do. Who, along the way, decided to give government the right to tell us what we can do with our own bodies, what we can ingest, what we can eat, what we can drink, what we can, anything. I mean, these bodies belong to us. It's very important that we are clear in conveying this to the American public in the general election, because that's where we can break in very quickly in appealing to many Americans who are voting for president this year. Do you own your body? Do you have the liberty to choose about what you do with your body? And so this is very, very important, and there's no question in my mind that the people who own your body is you.
No? There.
Sorry.
Okay. All right, Mr. Petersen, same question. And if any candidate needs me to repeat question, I would be glad to do so.
I absolutely believe in the concept of self-ownership. You own your body and you have the right to do with it as you please, provided you harm no one else. And therein is the caveat, which I think we can build the vast coalition that can help us win with. Because conservatives, I think, sometimes ignore the caveat, because with liberty becomes responsibility. And what's important for us to understand is that the drugs that people ingest, the street drugs, are dangerous because they're illegal. Because if you remember Prohibition, the reason why many of these gins that they were drinking from bathtubs were dangerous was because they were not allowed to be manufactured legally. So it's important for us, for public health, for us to remind the American people that if we ended the war on drugs, we would be a much safer country for it. And that's what I want to drive home in my campaign.
Thank you, Mr. Petersen. Mr. Robinson.
My body is my property. Anything other than that is authoritarian. I have the right to make a mistake. You have the right to make mistakes. There should be no such thing as victimless crimes. What I choose to put in my body, drugs, cigarettes, bad choices often, but I would much prefer the method of persuasion, attraction to your thoughts and your way of seeing things as opposed to force.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Thrasher.
If John were here this evening, he would start out by asking the same question. Do we own our bodies, or does the government? And if we own our bodies, then there's no question that our government has gone absolutely insane. And it is high time that we take the steps to reclaim our personal freedoms. A McAfee administration, one of the very first things that would take place is the pardoning of all nonviolent drug offenders, immediately reducing the schedules on drugs. This is something that can be done constitutionally without the consent of Congress. This would happen at day one from a McAfee administration. Now, again, the question is, do we own our bodies or does the government? And the fact that we all are up here telling America that there is an actual party that stands for personal freedoms, compare that to the Republicans and Democrats, you know, there's absolutely, there's no comparison. We are the answer. We are the party that can help bring America back to its
All right, Governor, your second question. Please explain your position on immigration and how America resolves its immigration problem.
Well, so let's start off with acknowledging that immigration is really a good thing, that we are a country of immigrants, that immigrants coming over the border are not taking jobs from U.S. citizens, they're taking jobs that U.S. citizens don't want, that there's not an issue of pay when it comes to immigration unless there's an issue of language, and they're the first ones that recognize that. Let's not build a wall across the border. That's crazy, and let's not talk about deporting 11 million illegal immigrants. That is just crazy. What we should do is create a moving line. Let's make it as easy as possible for anybody that wants to come into this country to get a work visa. Not a green card, not citizenship, but a work visa that should entail a background check and a social security card that applicable taxes get paid.
Thank you, Governor. Mr. Kerbel.
Well, you know, immigration has always been the key to the growth of our nation from the very beginning. It's emblazoned on the Statue of Liberty that we invite people to join our country. So, but the problem is, as each group came in, as the years went by, they were victimized and villainized until the next group came along. You know, the thing is, I believe in the freedom of movement. I believe that people should have the right to make a better life for themselves. And many people see that promise here in the United States of America to join us to build a better future for them and their families. I think that this is not something that should be discouraged. I think this is something that should be encouraged. And I think that truthfully, while there are people who are picking on the immigrants du jour, you know, and talking about building walls and all these other crazy things we keep hearing, they need to recognize the fact that there will be another group of immigrants du jour, and each group will be adding to us as a nation, and we should welcome them with open arms, and we still protect our security, but we still need to let them in. Thank you.
Mr. Petersen.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I'd like to build a wall around Donald Trump and make money makers I'm tired of this nativist rhetoric. I'm a Petersen, spelled S-E-N, Danish. My family came through Ellis Island. It was one of the greatest moments of my life to stand where my ancestors stood and came to this country. We need more of that here in the United States. I've been very successful in converting people to our cause by explaining to people who believe in freedom generally that a free market in labor is just as valuable as a free market in commodities. So people then understand, what business does the government have to get involved between an employer and an employee? And then all of a sudden the conservatives realize that the free market approach that they take to commodities applies equally as well in immigration. We can win on this platform, we can win on this issue, and we can have a freer America.
Mr. Robinson.
I believe in comprehensive citizenship for all 12 million undocumented workers of good character. Trickle-up economics treats each citizen as like an investment that will expand, and they will expand our economy. I'd like to restructure our international aid and prioritize Mexico and the countries south of our border, so that their economy will recover. There's not one country south of us that is a modern or developed country. No wonder they come to us. We really need to institute Merck principles in their countries so that they can recover from their impoverishment with wealth and health care and infrastructure, and people will stay home and wait for their own Merck programs to mature.
Thank you. Mr. Thrasher.
If John were here this evening, he would no doubt make light of the fact of how absurd it is to propose building a wall between us and a nation of some of the finest tunnel builders in the world. Now, America, as is been stated up here before, we are a nation of immigrants. It's time that we reform our entitlement programs that encourage unproductivity so that we are able to treat immigration once again as an asset, as opposed to a xenophobic and nativist rally round the flag issue. There's no sense in that. Again, we have 11 million undocumented immigrants in this country. To deport them, it is absurd. People must have the ability to travel and move as they see fit so that they may better their lives. John would say, let them come.
Thank you, Mr. Governor, for your third question, what is your specific plan to revamp the educational system in America?
As governor of New Mexico, I was more outspoken than any governor in the country regarding school choice, the notion of bringing competition to public education. But that said, what is the federal role in education? I would abolish the Federal Department of Education. And here's the argument, very simply, is the Federal Department of Education gives each state about 11 cents out of every school dollar that every state spends. But it comes with 15 cents attached to it. It's a negative to take federal money. So, and another thing, the Federal Department of Education, I think people think that it was established with George Washington. It was Jimmy Carter. And has there been anything value added with regard to the Department of Education since it was established under Jimmy Carter? No.
Thank you, Governor. Mr. Kerbel.
I think along a similar vein, when I look at the federal budget as a whole, I look at the discretionary spending, and one of the most abhorrent examples of this spending is the Department of Education. But it goes deeper than that. I think that people have the right to determine the education that's best for their children, and the higher the infrastructure and hierarchy gets, the less freedom and choice parents have in educating their children. I too would close the Department of Education. I believe that we have an infrastructure in place within the cities. We have school districts, we have counties, we have states. All of these entities can do fine without the federal government on their back. Not to mention the fact, not only would it save tax dollars to not have the Department of Education, it would save state tax dollars for the cost of compliance. So the key is, let the parents decide. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kerbel. Mr. Petersen.
I am absolutely opposed to federal intervention into the educational marketplace, period. The point of our educational system is not education, it's indoctrination, because they're going to get the state positive viewpoint. We should encourage homeschooling here in the United States, absolutely. I think that thank you very much. I was not homeschooled, I had a good public educational system, but some people do not. And what the problem is that we do not have equality across the board. We do need to have school choice in the meantime, but I don't think that the government should have any role in education whatsoever, not even on the state level. I would allow the states to decide, but I do think that we need a free market in education just as much as we do in any other industry.
Mr. Robinson.
There are so many directions that we could go with education. It's an interesting thing to me. I could see how every person could pay, 300 million students or 100 million students could pay $1 per teacher. The best teacher in the world to learn algebra. The best teacher in the world to learn science. All the students $1. So our cost could really go down to nothing if we wanted to. I would close the Department of Education. The government needs to stay out of it. I do have a program, Birth Loop, that will allow an account to be available by the time you reach college age, that will allow you to go, any American to go to college or technical. And I guess that's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Mr. Thrasher.
Well, several very excellent programs and ideas from school choice and whatnot have been articulated up here. I would say that John is absolutely in favor of dismantling the Department of Education and returning to local control of education. But another thing I'd like to mention, let's talk about how horrible a job the United States government has done with something like student loans. I myself am saddled with a ridiculous amount of user student loan debt. And I went to a school whose tuition went up something like 30% in 3 years. Now, why is college education becoming so expensive? It's becoming expensive because the government subsidizes it. That is why. This has to be eliminated. Student loans have to be reformed. And again, in all facets, we must get the federal government out of education and return local control.
Thank you, Mr. Thrasher. Governor, this year will mark 15 years since 9/11, and we are still at war with terrorists. How would you handle this war on terror?
Well, first of all, there is a very real Islamic terrorist threat out there. Our military interventions responsible for that terrorism? No. But our interventions are making things so much worse. So stop with the military interventions. Stop with boots on the ground. Stop dropping bombs. Stop flying drones that are killing thousands of innocent people, making the situation much, much worse. Yeah. So we need to contain what's happening over in the Middle East. We need to cut off the funding to terrorist groups, much as Saudi Arabia and the Emirates have taken a lead on doing. Let's contain what's happening over in the Middle East and stop with the military interventions.
Mr. Kerbel.
It didn't happen overnight. We didn't start getting attacked because of something that happened 5 minutes ago. We've been bombing these people for 70 years. It is unrealistic to think that military intervention that results in the death of a family member is to be quickly forgotten. We have made our enemies, but we have to stop making them. A non-interventionist strategy is the way to accomplish this, combined with a good defense at home, and don't forget those Second Amendment rights. The reality is this: ISIS is not a representation of a religion. It's a violent gang. We need to identify it as a violent gang and treat it as such. It's very good to by cutting our defense budget in half, we can still have a very good defense here at home. By allowing the people the Second Amendment rights, if somebody does want to come over, they're going to be sorry they did. And then the next 70 years goes by, maybe this threat goes away, but the key to it is not attacking, it's being strong at home and letting them handle it.
Thank you, Mr. Kerbel. Mr. Petersen.
Before I begin, let me say I am absolutely sick and tired of the fear-mongering by politicians driving us into war and expending our blood and treasure. It must come to a stop. You have a greater chance of dying in your bathtub tonight than of dying in a terrorist attack. That being said, I think that we do need a national defense, but one that is focused on defense, not militarism. And we need a full audit of our Pentagon. Absolutely. As Commander-in-Chief, I would never go to war without a constitutional declaration of war. We need to reinstitute due process and stop the extrajudicial killing program. I'm sick and tired of it. The executive should not have the unitary power over life and death. We can protect national security, and we can do so constitutionally.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
I have no problem with Islam. ISIS, though, must be defeated. They are evil men, land pirates, mercenaries. The entire world hates ISIS. They can easily be defeated with low-level tactics, oil supply, money supply, local coalitions. Beyond that, beyond defeating ISIS, our foreign policy should be to be a good world citizen. We should restructure our international aid to Berkeley principles, rebuilding the poorest of countries with healthcare and infrastructure. Drive the cartels in this country by legalizing drugs. Stabilize and enrich our southern hemisphere, where we're not one country, has a modern developed economy. And prioritize Berkeley, Mexico, and southern hemisphere, encouraging people to implement their own Berkeley programs and stay home.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Mr. Thrasher.
I'd like to read a quote from John. One of the few constitutionally sanctioned duties of the federal government is to provide for the national defense. And our government, in addition to being corrupt to the core, is woefully unprepared to defend our nation from the very real threat of cyber war. Now, again, the real threat that we face as a nation is the threat to our infrastructure. John is the only candidate talking about this threat, not just from the Libertarian Party, but all across the spectrum of presidential candidates. He is the only candidate with the knowledge and know-how to know what we actually need to do to modernize our national defense to protect us from the real threats out there. And I'd like to give one other quote from John concerning terrorism and whatnot. The U.S. has for far too long considered itself to be the world's policeman at the expense of rational internal growth. This must change. Interference in the affairs of foreign states is the true cause of national animosities and is the fertilizer and feed for terrorism.
All right, fifth question for Mr. Johnson. It's assumed that all of you on stage are going to be against the Affordable Care Act. However, what would you replace it with, and how are you going to bring the cost of medicine and medical services down for the average American?
Look, when the whole healthcare debate started, I thought, all right, we can bring free market principle to healthcare. In a free market approach to healthcare, we would not have insurance at all to cover ourselves for ongoing medical need. We would have insurance to cover ourselves for catastrophic injury and illness, and we would pay as you go in a system that would be incredibly affordable because of competition. I had envisioned stitches are us. I had envisioned gallbladders are us. Gallbladder surgery for thousands of dollars as opposed to tens of thousands of dollars. This is the opportunity that we had, that we still have. What we have right now, in my instance, I have my premiums quadruple. I haven't visited a doctor in 2.5 years. Bring the free market to healthcare. And by the way, healthcare is as far removed right now from free market as it can be.
The free market is the key to healthcare reform. The other thing is certainly having the ability to negotiate your fee with your provider is a luxury that we just don't have right now, because when you belong to an insurance plan, then you get a discounted rate. But if you don't, then you really don't. The free market does not exist in the healthcare sector. The other thing too is regulation is still very, I would much rather that, I don't know, doctors are the ones who are keeping track of the way the medical practice works instead of bureaucrats. I think that that and the legal climate of just an endless amount of lawsuits, it's driven up the price of healthcare to a ridiculous level, unsustainable, and makes no sense whatsoever. So if we did step back, let the doctors manage it, let the people have some choice, let them negotiate their rates, and I think that's really the right answer, rather than bringing in more government involvement.
Mr. Petersen.
I've been very successful at converting even Bernie Sanders supporters to the free market argument in healthcare with the following discussion. Eye surgery used to be very expensive. It's an elective surgery. It's the kind of thing that you have to pay for out of pocket. When it first came out, it would sometimes regress. It was a low-quality surgery with a high cost. As time has passed, the quality of that surgery has gone up and the costs have come down. This is what the Libertarian Party offers to the United States in forms of health care. We can build a broad-based coalition of people who will want these types of reforms if we make these simple arguments. And I hope you'll join me in my campaign so that we can take over this government and leave everyone alone, including in health care.
Thank you, Mr. Petersen. Mr. Robinson.
The affordable health care will not get any larger. It will shrink from day one, because we will implement in its place work-plus health care, which is simply a new economic model that will allow each child to have their own, enough money to buy their own health care policy. That's just pretty much all there is to it. Anybody, the Affordable Care Act, what would happen is all the people who are on it now die, fade away, the government, that program will fade, no new people will enter it. Over time, it will just disappear.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Mr. Thrasher.
Well, I think we all agree. I think it's fair to say in this room, just about everybody here thinks that the Affordable Care Act is a absolutely horrid piece of legislation and policy. But I'd like to just step outside of the box. We know that there are free market solutions to the problem of health care, and those have been discussed. But let's just talk about where the regulation, the endless regulation, just gets to a point of absurdity. Let's talk about the FDA. Now, do you realize that there are regulations saying that the FDA will not allow someone who is dying of cancer to take an experimental drug because it might harm them? Now, how absurd is that? The Libertarian Party's nominee is going to be the face of the Libertarian Party to America. Let's make sure that we choose somebody who is going to say at every moment that regulation must be ended, it must be curtailed. We've got to get the government out of just about every single facet of our lives. Healthcare is no different.
Time. All right, gentlemen, these next three questions will be answered by your volunteerism. So we're all going to answer the questions. It's just a matter of who's first is who wants to go first. Here is the question that you can all ponder. Recently in Colorado, the EPA accidentally released toxic minerals from the Gold King mine, thereby contaminating nearby watersheds and then the San Juan rivers. Since water is going to be an increasingly needed resource for everyone, what is your plan to ensure that watersheds, waterways, and rivers, etc., are protected and available for when we need them as a country? Mr. Kerbel has offered to go first.
Well, being from Colorado, I have a few thoughts on this. Certainly, to begin with, the EPA it's amazing how the EPA can get away with things that the people can't. They're okay to destroy our rivers because they told somebody what to do, but if you try and stand up against it, good luck to you. This is a characteristic problem we face. You know, I kind of go back to the same theme, and my libertarianism it begins and ends with individual liberty, and to me the antithesis of individual liberty is government regulation. So to me, I think ending the EPA would be a pretty good start to stop these things from happening again. The private sector, the free market, these are the ones who can come up with the ingenuity, the ingenious solutions to solve these problems again. But if you just put everything into a little box that the EPA says you must do this or I'm going to do things to you, certainly not going to help the condition of our water.
Thank you, Mr. Kerbel. Anybody would like to go next? Mr. Petersen.
The EPA was originally founded to provide scientific and technical expertise in court cases. We need to remove the enforcement arm of the EPA and get them back to their original mandate. We don't need bureaucrats with guns. All we need is for them to provide us with scientific expertise in terms of property disputes. If you pollute your neighbor's private property, you have the right to sue them. In that case, perhaps some institution might be able to offer us technical expertise where a judge might not understand the implications to the climate or the damage to the property. So let's remove the ability of the EPA to use guns, and let's get them back where they're supposed to be in the egghead chamber and providing expertise in private property disputes.
Thank you, Mr. Petersen. Governor Johnson, go ahead.
Well, I'm proposing a balanced budget to Congress, so in today's dollars, that would be a 20% reduction in spending across the board, and that would include the EPA. But I do believe that the EPA comes under the heading of protecting us against individuals, groups, corporations that would do us harm. And let me tell you a story in northern New Mexico. Molycorp mine was polluting the Red River in New Mexico, and they'd been doing it for decades. And they were absolutely putting their thumb out, finger out to the state of New Mexico. They weren't going to clean it up. And for decades, they hadn't cleaned it up. Now, I understand this notion about individuals being able to sue, potentially suing Molycorp, but in this case, the biggest anvil I had was turning them into a Superfund site. I said, I'm going to give you 30 days to come to the table, and if you don't come to the table, I'm going to make you a Superfund site because you're polluting. And they were bad actors. And I ended up turning them over to the EPA. They became a Superfund site because they refused to clean up the river.
Mr. Thrasher, go ahead.
There have been studies upon studies that continually say that the single largest polluter in our nation is the Environmental Protection Agency. Once again, the absurdity of government. Now, there's no question that we must be able to protect, an individual must be able to protect their property and to be able to have redress and be able to petition the courts to have remedies for situations such as what's happening with the Gold King mine. Now, again, how hard is it for that? There's a specific Navajo tribe there that's been drastically affected, and they're having trouble finding any sort of federal standing because of so many laws saying that you cannot sue the federal government. Again, this is something that has to be eliminated. The Environmental Protection Agency, once again, has completely failed in its original intent. It must be eliminated. It is just one more example of absurd government programs that we simply do not need.
Thank you, Mr. Petersen. And Mr. Robinson?
There's little accountability in government. Congress outsources its job all too often to agencies like the EPA. People with no experience running these programs believe that private experts would be a far better solution. We need good judgment. Water is going to be in high demand in the world, and we need good judgment to keep our water supply safe.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. All right, candidates, next question. Undeniably, a libertarian president would lead to a smaller government through closing of various agencies, which in turn will lead to thousands of government workers losing their job. How are you going to handle that backlash? Who wants to go first? Mr. Petersen.
Gladly, and with packing them on the way out. That's our money. It's not their money, and we need to take it back. Now, when I look at federal agencies that I'd like to abolish, I get a little greedy, and I want to start picking and choosing lots of them. The president obviously does not write the law. We need to remind the American people that the president cannot just abolish willy-nilly. However, by ending the war on drugs and setting all of the drug schedules to zero, this would effectively end the war on drugs and end the DEA's ability to enforce. That's one agency gone day one. Other than that, I will fight a war of attrition in Congress and have the American people in my back with my penny plan, which would cut all programs 1%, 1 penny out of every federal dollar across the board. No more special interest whining. Everybody takes a haircut. We will cut the beast down and kill Leviathan and bring in a balanced budget in 5 years.
Thank you, Mr. Petersen. Mr. Kerbel.
The key to the implementation of closing what I view as unconstitutional federal regulatory agencies. And by the way, when I made my list, I found about $612 billion that we can save out of the $1.1 trillion discretionary federal budget by paring down a lot of these agencies. Now, the key is in the implementation. Obviously it comes down to your staff, because you have to have people who are qualified to create the best possible environment to make for a smoothest possible transition while still standing up for the rights and liberties of the people and saving the money. So the key is in the implementation. Once you've identified and made the change, it just takes a good staff of people to do it right, and I'm pretty sure being President of the United States, they're probably at my disposal.
Thank you, Mr. Kerbel. Governor, would you like to go next?
So to eliminate any agencies, of course, takes congressional action, and of course you'd sign off on that. And I would do that any day of the week. As governor of New Mexico, I proposed the closing of numerous agencies within the state, none of which the legislature proposed. But what I did, and it had never happened before in the history of New Mexico, when I left office, there were 1,000 fewer state employees than when I got there. We just managed attrition. It was more efficient government because we were doing it with fewer people and we were doing more things. I'm proposing to abolish income tax and corporate tax and the IRS. And if we were to do that, we would create tens of millions of jobs in this country. Why would you start up a business anywhere in the world other than the United States with a 0 corporate tax rate? All those government employees that would lose their jobs will have plenty of entrepreneurial opportunities elsewhere.
Thank you, Governor. Mr. Thrasher.
Now, John would note that the single largest federal agency's budget is actually the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and that is certainly one that will be on the chopping block. Now, of course, as the governor mentioned, it require the consent of Congress to actually eliminate the agencies. What is in the power of the president is to, shall we say, again, manage the personnel, cut it back as much as possible. Yes, there are some hard choices and hard things that we would have to say to these government workers, but Mr. Petersen said, it's perfect. It's our money. It's not theirs. And you know, that's a fact of life. The government leviathan has just grown to such a ridiculous proportion that hard cuts need to be made in order to get the government back into the very small box that we all think it should be.
Thank you, Mr. Thrasher. Mr. Robinson.
Closed loop principles will ignite our economy in a way that we've never seen before. A lot of my projections are based on normal increases in our GDP, like 3%, but I really would expect a growth in our economy more along the lines of 10%. I do it in my businesses. My businesses grow 20% year after year and have for 20 years. I would expect that employment would drop below 0%. Our government workers will have all the jobs they need. In fact, we'll need our immigrant population to help in these jobs. Every year, a new infusion of dollars will go into our economy, and so each year the economy will become more and more powerful rather than less. And I guess that's about it.
Thank you, Mr. All right, gentlemen, this will be our last question. With technology providing us driverless cars and high-speed rails such as Elon Musk's Hyperloop, while at the same time Amtrak and traditional transportation infrastructure is crumbling, how do you foresee the future of transportation developing, and what would you do as president to ensure that the future means of transportation are brought to the marketplace? Don't all jump at it at once.
Oh,
Mr. Petersen.
I know this is pie in the sky, but I think that the future of humanity lies amongst the stars. Roads, where we're going, we don't need roads. I'd love to empower the entrepreneur to take humanity into the stars. Who knows what could happen to the Earth? There have been dinosaurs at one time and an asteroid hit Earth. We need to empower people like Elon Musk so that they can make investments, so that we can have human redundancy, so that human life can flourish throughout the galaxy and throughout the entire universe. That will come because of the initiative of private markets, because of entrepreneurs. I'm not interested in investing in infrastructure any more than is absolutely necessary. In fact, our founding fathers never laid taxes for infrastructure in such a way. You know what they did? George Washington signed his own lottery tickets, and they had a voluntary lottery to pay for roads. That's what I'd like to do, and I hope that I can be your candidate for president under such offices.
Thank you, Mr. Petersen. Mr. Thrasher.
Yes, the question here is of technology, and I would just like to point out that the gentleman I represent, John McAfee, is an entrepreneur extraordinaire who grew a company to a billion-dollar company. He built it from the ground up, he ran it, and he was part of a revolution in an industry that was largely free of government regulation. And look at what has come out of the technology industry, out of Silicon Valley, innovation on top of innovation. Again, not being stifled by government regulation. John McAfee is the only candidate here for the Libertarian nomination that has a background with the technology industry. John wants to bring the technology movement home to the Libertarian Party. we have a huge, huge opportunity to reach a segment of the population that they think, as we do, that government should be very small, we should have personal liberty. They don't know about the Libertarian Party. It is up to us to show people that their philosophical home is here with us.
Well, technologically speaking, we should just step out of the way. I mean, don't get government involved in technology. Let the free market reign. Let me just offer you up a few predictions on the driverless car, all right? I think the driverless car is going to be incredibly exciting. I think that it's probably going to bring an end to hotels, planes, and trains, because we're going to now get in our driverless car at 11 o'clock p.m. to go to Denver in our sleeper driverless car. It will actually plug itself in as it makes its way to Denver or wherever it's going. And then when it comes to my parents or elderly, oh my gosh, to be able to have them be able to get in a driverless car and say, take me to the store, which would be pre-programmed, that's an exciting concept. And of course, we won't even own cars, we'll just Uber it up. And the future of America is Uber and Airbnb, where everybody's an entrepreneur, we eliminate the middleman.
Mr. Kerbel.
Well, I think when you look at the difference in the last 100+ years in the ability for the private citizen to develop new and exciting technology, let's look at the roadblocks that Henry Ford had versus the roadblocks that, oh, I don't know, Tesla has had. And so the key is that, you know, that's a nice thing about being a libertarian, because it's pretty universal. We'd like to see the government get out of the way of the people, let the free market dictate, and let the people express their ingenuity. So if we can actually accomplish this, then these enhancements, these technological enhancements that are going to come, are going to be big and bold and effective and beautiful. The key is leave it to the people and the free market, and let the government stop putting up roadblocks to the success and ingenuity of the people.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
The future of transportation, we're seeing some of it now with Uber. It's been interesting to me to watch Chris Christie placate the special interest and not allow Uber into their state. I've always had a great interest along with Darryl Perry. Hats off to you, Darryl, on flying cars. Studied it for years. Been waiting for the technology to come. The technology is here. NASA has mapped out a highway now. We have the ability to travel in space. I'd like to see that happen. When that happens, I can envision America where we spend no more money on roads and bridges and that type of infrastructure. Great savings. That's my hope for the future.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. All right, gentlemen, we have ended our questions. I'm going to allow each of you 90 seconds to conclude, and we're going to start with Mr. Thrasher. 90 seconds to conclude, sir.
Once again, thank you all so very much for allowing me to be with you this evening. I just want to take a moment and say, the ideas you have heard on this stage tonight, this is our moment. This is the time where these ideas can get out to a wider audience. And again, I'd like to make the argument John McAfee is absolutely poised to give us the most maximum exposure we can have to an audience who is yet to hear the message of libertarianism. We must inform people that so that they know in their minds that they are libertarians, because in their hearts they already are. Okay? And again, I would encourage everyone to visit McAfee2016.com. If anybody has any other specific questions, I'll be hanging around afterwards. You know, it's interesting, I didn't really expect to make it this far, so I didn't prepare a closing statement, but in any case, it has been a joy and a pleasure to be up here with you all. And once again, John McAfee provides a very interesting opportunity for us. He has the heart of a libertarian, and I encourage you all to take a second look at his candidacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Thrasher. Mr. Robinson, you're next.
At each convention, I have claimed that I can use libertarian values to put an end to poverty once and for all, that I can provide universal health care, college education, and a wealthy retirement for every American. Trickle-up economics tweaks our current lending model, making it more efficient. Each social or economic problem is attacked generationally rather than all at once. Today's socialistic open-ended welfare handout models will be replaced by safe, smart loans with fantastic terms. Birth Loop programs are forward-thinking, using time to our advantage. We will usher in a new era of prosperity for our nation and all humanity. The libertarian dream of personal and economic freedom will be irresistible to the American electorate. Mine is a selfless campaign to promote trickle-up economics and the Libertarian Party. In every convention to date, and this one is no different, I have said that the path I see to winning this election is for two-time Governor Gary Johnson to be the nominee, not me, carrying forth my message of trickle-up economics. If Governor Johnson doesn't agree in time, and he has every right to study it, then I should be the nominee. I'm so certain and sincere that I now put my reputation on the line and press each candidate to prove me wrong. Prove the flaw in my thinking. Just saying it is socialistic is not critical thinking. Ad hominem attacks are not valid. With that said, as far as I'm concerned, my opponents are now in line to prove me wrong. Will join me in voting for the move as an economic platform for
Thank you. That's all right. Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Mr. Petersen, 90 seconds, please.
First of all, thank you all very much for having me. And I understand and respect private property, and I understand that you are a private club, and you are under no requirement to invite me here tonight, but I'm very grateful that you allowed me to come and speak to you. I have also sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man. And I've learned in my life that sometimes it is very important for us to confront our demons, because bullies shrink when you shine the light of truth and righteousness. And when I win as your nominee, I will stand up to the bullies of the Democrats, the Social Democrats, and the authoritarian Republicans, and I will hold up the torch of liberty and make you so proud that you've nominated me. I may be young, but I am not inexperienced. I believe that I represent the future of this liberty movement. There are hundreds and hundreds of people who have paid for me to be here today. The movement is at my back. The wind is at my back. Tomorrow I head back to Missouri, and I will continue to crisscross this nation and represent these ideals that we all love. Thank you so much for your support.
Mr. Kerbel, 90 seconds, sir.
Well, first of all, I gotta say I am so proud of my home state. What an event you guys put on. Colorado. I'm very proud to say I am one of you. Now, when it comes to 2016, 2016 is an interesting year. But there's no doubt, we're all talking about it. We all see the potential. We all know we're going to blow away anything we've ever done in the past. You know, and I would say that thanks to Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, they have teed up the ball for us. The bases are loaded. It's up to us to hit this ball out of the park. So now, instead of representing which one of us you may nominate, to think of just being a voice for the party, think about who's actually going to be in the White House, because you know what? That is not such a far-fetched possibility anymore. Certainly a tall order, certainly a very difficult thing to accomplish, but I'd encourage you to picture who you'd like to see behind the Oval Office desk instead of who you'd like to see just being the mouthpiece of the party, because I tell you, this is possible. All of your hard work for so many years has brought us to this point, and I'm very blessed and very honored to be with this great group of gentlemen in working to earn your nomination for President of the United States. Thank you.
Governor Johnson, you will have the last statement of the evening.
I would not be seeking the nomination if I didn't think there was an opportunity to win. And the only way that a third party can win is to be in the presidential debates in the general election. Our America Initiative is suing the Presidential Debate Commission. Bruce Fein specifically is suing the Presidential Debate Commission. The notion is that if you're on the ballot in enough states to mathematically be elected president, then you should be included in the presidential debates. Bruce Fein's claim to fame is that he brought Nixon down in Watergate. Bruce Fein is saying that this is the biggest thing that he has done in his entire life. I gotta tell you, that means something. So this suit was filed 5 months ago. It will get heard timely. It will get heard before the Supreme Court. There is a very good opportunity that whomever is the Libertarian nominee will be in the presidential debates. We have the opportunity this go-round to change politics in America like it's never been seen before, and that also goes to Hillary and Donald Trump on both ends of this spectrum that together represent about 30% of the American electorate. Libertarians represent the majority of the electorate. It's just that they don't know it, but we may have that opportunity to do it. And lastly, Colorado, you rock!
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up to our candidate.